Now, I know that sounds like a stretch, like some magic emotional trick, but it's not. This is about practicing self-mastery, not pretending you're a robot. It's about learning how to protect your peace without needing to control every storm around you. Let's clear something up right away. You are not responsible for other people's emotions. Let that sink in. You're not required to carry the emotional weight that someone else refuses to manage. You're not a dumping ground for someone's stress, insecurity, or bad day. But for most of us, it's been drilled into us, subtly, over years, that we need to keep everyone happy, keep the peace, don't upset anyone. Smile and nod, absorb their moods like a sponge. That's not peacekeeping, that's self-abandonment. When someone lashes out, when they raise their voice, roll their eyes, send that passive-aggressive text, your first instinct might be to wonder, what did I do wrong? But what if it's not about you? What if it's their unhealed trauma showing up uninvited? What if it's their own lack of emotional regulation spilling out into the room? That doesn't mean we stop caring. It doesn't mean we lose empathy. But we need to know the difference between compassion and codependency. See, when someone's upset, especially someone close to us, a partner, a coworker, a friend, it's easy to get hooked, to feel like their discomfort is our emergency. But here's the truth. Their emotion is their responsibility. Your reaction is yours. You can care without caring. You can listen without fixing. You can stay present without absorbing. And look, I get it. If you were raised in an environment where keeping everyone calm was a form of survival, if you learned to read every room like a radar, then it's going to feel uncomfortable to not step in and manage someone else's mood. It might feel like guilt, like selfishness, like abandonment, but it's not. It's health, it's balance, it's growth. Because if we don't draw the line, people will hand us their emotional baggage with a smile, and we'll take it. We'll carry it for miles until one day we wake up exhausted, resentful, and confused why we feel so heavy all the time. You can put it down. You don't owe anyone your peace just because they lost theirs. And here's where it gets real honest. Some people will not like that you no longer absorb their moods. They'll call you cold, detached, distant. But what's actually happening is they're losing access to a version of you that was always overfunctioning to keep them comfortable. That version was tired. That version was burnt out. That version was never your job to begin with. And you can love someone deeply and still choose to step out of the role of emotional caretaker. Because the second you take full responsibility for someone else's feelings, you rob them of their growth. You shield them from the discomfort that teaches accountability, and you trade your emotional peace for their short-term comfort. That's not fair to either of you. Let me be crystal clear here. You can still be kind. You can still validate someone's experience. You can still say, I see that this is hard for you, or I understand you're feeling overwhelmed right now. But what you're not going to do is lose yourself in the process. You're not going to twist yourself into a knot to make sure someone else never feels discomfort. Why? Because their emotions are not yours to fix. They are theirs to feel, process, and manage. You don't have to take the bait. You don't have to defend yourself against every jab. You don't have to respond to every emotional outburst like it's a courtroom cross-examination. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response, not in a cold, dismissive way, but in a grounded, clear, respectful way. You stand tall, you stay calm, you say, I can't hold that for you today. Or maybe you don't say anything at all and you let their storm pass without walking into it. Here's the thing, the moment you stop trying to manage other people's feelings, you'll feel lighter. Not because the world suddenly became easier, but because you stopped dragging 1,000 pounds of emotional labor that was never yours in the first place. You'll find your peace in the pause, in the breath between their reaction and your response, in the space where you remember, this isn't mine, I don't have to carry it. You'll be tempted to step in, to smooth it over, to take responsibility for the tone of the room. But you'll pause, you'll smile softly, and you'll let it be theirs. Because the strongest person in the room isn't the loudest, it's not the one trying to win, it's not the one pulling strings or raising voices. It's the one who knows where they end and where someone else begins. The one who's done confusing guilt with responsibility. The one who knows that empathy doesn't require enmeshment. The one who lets others feel their feelings without owning them. So if you want to never feel angry or bothered by anyone again, start right here with the radical, liberating truth that you are not responsible for anyone's emotional state but your own. That's not selfish. That's clarity. That's freedom. And that's where peace begins. Let's talk about anger. Now, I know anger gets a bad reputation. It's loud, it's intense, it can be destructive if left unchecked. But I'm going to tell you something that might sound surprising. Anger isn't the enemy. Anger is just a signal. It's your internal alarm system. It's your mind and body saying, hey, something doesn't feel right here. It's not good or bad. It's just information. The real problem, it's what we do after we feel it. See, most of us weren't taught how to recognize anger for what it actually is. We were either taught to explode, yell, slam doors, send the text, raise the volume, or to suppress, push it down, smile through it, pretend it's not there. Neither one is healthy. Both leave damage in their own way. One leaves scorch marks in the room. The other leaves internal bruises nobody else sees. But if we slow down, if we really listen to anger, we start to see what's underneath. Because here's the truth, anger is never the first emotion. It's a protector. It usually shows up because something else got triggered, something softer, something more vulnerable, hurt, fear, disrespect, abandonment, exhaustion, injustice. Anger walks in like a bodyguard, ready to fight. But the question we need to ask ourselves is, what is this anger protecting? Maybe someone crossed a boundary. Maybe you felt ignored. Maybe you're grieving something that no one else sees. Or maybe you're just tired, and that tired turned into frustration, and that frustration hardened into anger. You're not crazy. You're not too sensitive. You're human. And anger is just the flare your body sends up when something underneath needs your attention. But here's the catch, and this is where it gets powerful. Anger is a signal, not a strategy. It can tell you what's wrong, but it can't tell you what to do next. That's your job. See, the problem is when we mistake the feeling for the fix. When we think, I feel angry, so I need to let it out. We blast off in that moment. We vent. We blame. We fire back in the group chat. And maybe it feels good for a second. But what happens after that? Now, we've got more cleanup to do. We might have gotten the reaction we wanted, but we lost our calm. We might have won the moment, but we lost control. Here's what I want you to remember when that anger hits. Pause. Don't pounce. Take one breath. That breath is the difference between reaction and response. 1 second of pause can stop you from saying something you'll wish you could unsay later. That doesn't mean you suppress it. It doesn't mean you smile and act like nothing happened. It just means you check in before you lash out. Ask yourself, what am I really angry about? What part of me feels threatened or hurt right now? Is this about them or is this about me? You'd be amazed how often the thing we're reacting to is actually tied to something old, a trigger, a wound, a memory. Not just the current moment, but when we don't slow down, we act like it's all happening right now. And we throw emotional punches that don't belong to the person standing in front of us. That's where relationships break. That's where trust slips. That's where regret creeps in. And this isn't about being perfect. We all get angry. We all lose it sometimes. But the goal isn't to never feel anger. It's to stop letting it drive the car. You can let anger ride in the passenger seat. It can speak up. You can even say, thank you for showing me what matters, but you don't hand it the wheel. You don't let it choose the direction. Because anger doesn't know where peace lives. That's your job. And here's another truth that might sting a little, but it's real. You are responsible for what you do with your anger. No matter how unfair the situation is, no matter how wrong the other person was, you are still responsible for your response. That's not weakness. That's power. Because the most powerful person in any room isn't the loudest. It's the one who can feel the fire and still choose the response. That's strength. That's discipline. That's emotional maturity. You want to be unbothered? You want to stop living at the mercy of what someone else says or does? Start by understanding that your anger is your signal. It's not their punishment. It's not your weapon. And it's definitely not your solution. You can feel angry and still choose not to raise your voice. You can feel disrespected and still choose not to disrespect back. You can feel triggered and still choose a calm, clear boundary instead of a blow-up. That's not giving up your power. That's owning it. And the more you practice it, the stronger it gets. The first time it feels impossible. The second time it feels awkward. By the 10th time, it feels like freedom. Because now you're not just reacting to life. You're responding with intention, with clarity, with peace. And people will notice. They might even test you more at first. They'll expect you to blow up like you used to. But you won't, because you've trained yourself to listen to anger without being led by it. So the next time you feel that heat rising in your chest, that tension in your jaw, pause. Don't push it away. Don't run from it. Just get curious. Ask it what it's trying to tell you. Because anger, at its core, is not your enemy. It's just your body saying something important is happening here. It's your job to slow down, listen, and choose what happens next. That's how you stay calm. That's how you stop being bothered. That's how you reclaim your power one choice at a time. Let's talk about boundaries, one of the most misunderstood concepts when it comes to personal peace and emotional clarity. Most people think boundaries are about other people. That if I set a boundary, it means I'm telling them what they can or can't do, that I'm trying to control their behavior or push them away. That's not it. A boundary isn't about controlling anyone. It's not about punishment. And it's not about changing someone else. A real boundary is about you. It's about defining what you are okay with, what you will accept, what you will do in response. If a line gets crossed, boundaries aren't aggressive. They're not mean. In fact, they're one of the most respectful things you can create for yourself and for others. Because here's the truth. You can't control people. You can only control your access, your energy, and your response. Let's break that down. You might want someone to stop interrupting you or stop texting you at all hours or stop showing up late or stop bringing drama into every conversation. But saying stop doing that over and over again, that's not a boundary. That's a request. That's a hope. That's you trying to change their behavior. And people, they don't always change. Not because they're bad, but because that's who they are right now. That's their pattern. That's their comfort zone. So if you keep waiting for them to get it, to magically respect your time, your space, your needs, you'll stay frustrated. A real boundary steps in and says, this isn't about whether they change. This is about how I respond if they don't. You take the power back. You stop outsourcing your peace to other people's behavior. And that's where calm starts. Let me give you an example. Let's say someone in your life constantly calls you when you've asked them not to, late at night during work, maybe in the middle of your rest time. You've told them, please don't call me after 9 p.m. They keep doing it anyway. Now here's what most people do. They get irritated, they answer angrily, or they send a long text, or they just stew in frustration feeling like they're being disrespected. But a real boundary sounds like this. If you continue calling me after 9 p.m., I won't be answering anymore. Notice the difference. It's not about them. It's not about making them stop. It's about you stating what you will do in response. That's power. That's clarity. And it's also kindness because you're not yelling, you're not blaming, you're not shaming. You're simply being honest about your limits. And listen, people might not like your boundaries. They may try to argue. They might push back, guilt trip, or accuse you of being cold or selfish. That doesn't mean your boundary is wrong. That just means it's working because boundaries often reveal who benefits from your lack of them. And when you start showing up in a new way, clearer, calmer, more grounded, people have to adjust. And not everyone wants to. But you don't set boundaries to control reactions. You set boundaries to protect your well-being. You don't set boundaries to punish people. You set them to keep yourself safe emotionally and mentally. And here's something important to remember. You can set a boundary without being angry. A lot of people wait until they're at the breaking point, until they're furious, overwhelmed, or completely burnt out before they say, that's it, I'm done. But boundaries don't have to come with fire. They don't have to come with rage. They can come quietly, calmly, from a place of self-respect. You can say, I'm not available for this conversation right now. I'm not comfortable with that tone, so I'm going to step away. If this continues, I'll need to take some space. And then here's the key. You follow through, not with threats, not with emotional explosions, but with action. Quiet, consistent action. Because boundaries mean nothing without follow-through. Words are one part, action is the rest. Now you might ask, isn't it selfish to put myself first? No, it's necessary. Putting yourself first isn't about ignoring others. It's about no longer abandoning yourself to meet everyone else's expectations. It's about not setting yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. It's about realizing that your peace is your responsibility and no one else is going to protect it for you. People might call it selfish, but people who benefit from your lack of boundaries will always call your clarity a problem. Let them. You're not here to be easily tolerated. You're here to be respected. And the more boundaries you set, the more peace you create. You'll find you get less angry, less reactive, because you're no longer stuck in this endless loop of trying to fix, manage, or anticipate everyone else's behavior. You've taken the pressure off them and put the power back in your own hands. You get to say, I don't have to explain myself to be respected. I don't need permission to protect my peace. I don't owe access to people just because they expect it. That kind of clarity, it's rare and it's strong. So next time someone crosses a line or drains your energy or leaves you feeling resentful, don't just react. Ask yourself, what boundary is missing here? What am I expecting them to do that I could simply take action on myself? Because boundaries aren't walls, they're doors. They don't shut people out. They guide people in. They say, here's how I'd like to be treated. And if that can't happen, here's what I'll do next. And that's not control. That's not aggression. That's clarity. And clarity, especially in the chaotic world, is one of the most loving things you can give yourself. So set the boundary, say the thing, follow through gently, firmly, consistently, not because you want to change them, but because you've finally chosen to honor you. You don't have to attend every emotional invitation. Let's pause right there, because that sentence, that one simple idea, can change your life if you let it. Every day, you are invited to arguments, invited to drama, invited to defensiveness, invited to people's moods, their passive aggression, their projections. And guess what? You're allowed to decline. You're allowed to say, I see what this is, and I'm not getting pulled in. Not with anger, not with sarcasm, not with ego, just with clarity. Because not every message deserves a reply. Not every jab deserves a counterpunch, and not every situation needs your emotional attendance. But that's hard, isn't it? Especially when you're wired to respond, especially when someone says something that just lights you up. Maybe it's disrespect, maybe it's control, maybe it's just that tone they use that makes you want to fight for your dignity. And I get it. I've been there. We all have. But here's where emotional maturity steps in and gives you a choice. You can either react to the moment or you can respond to the truth. And the truth is, the second someone throws emotional bait at you, they're looking for a specific response. They want you flustered. They want you defensive. They want you knocked off your calm so that the conversation becomes about your reaction instead of their behavior. And if you take that bait, it works. They say the thing, you snap. Now you're the angry one. They press your buttons, you explode. Now you're too emotional. They poke you panic. Now you're apologizing just to keep the peace. Sound familiar? That's why one of the most powerful things you can do is this. Don't show up to every fight you're invited to. Let the message sit. Let the tone roll past you. Let the provocation die in silence. You're not running. You're not ignoring reality. You're just choosing not to waste your peace on people who thrive on chaos. Because let's be honest, some people aren't trying to connect. They're trying to control. They're not looking for solutions. They're looking for sparks. They want to pull you into their storm so they don't have to sit in it alone. But your job is not to be available for every emotional mess someone brings to your door. You're not a sponge. You're not a mirror. You don't have to reflect every mood that walks into the room. You can hold your center. You can stay in your lane. And sometimes the best response is no response. Now, that doesn't mean you're stonewalling. It doesn't mean you're shutting down. It means you're using discernment. You're asking yourself, is this conversation worth my energy? Will anything I say actually move this forward? Am I showing up with intention or just reacting out of habit? Because here's what happens when you don't pause, you fire back. You say too much. You overshare, overdefend, overexplain, trying to prove something to someone who never intended to understand you in the first place. And then later, you're drained, regretful, replaying the conversation in your head, wishing you had just kept your cool. So what if next time you did? What if next time someone sent that snarky message or made that sarcastic comment or tried to gaslight you into questioning your reality, you just didn't engage? What if you took a deep breath, reminded yourself, I don't have to go there, and kept walking? That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Because peace isn't passive, it's powerful. And the people who keep it aren't the ones who never feel anger. They're the ones who know when to act and when to let it pass. You don't win every battle by showing up to fight. Sometimes you win by walking away with your calm intact, with your self-respect unshaken, with your integrity undisturbed. And listen, if you're someone who always feels the need to defend yourself, I see you. You've probably spent years being misunderstood, years trying to be heard, years trying to explain, clarify, justify, and it's exhausting. So let me give you permission right now. You don't have to attend every emotional invitation. You don't have to explain your peace to people who prefer your chaos. You don't have to validate false narratives by reacting to them. Sometimes silence is the loudest boundary. Sometimes stillness is the strongest message. Sometimes calm is the clearest form of power. And the more you practice it, the easier it gets. You'll start noticing that things don't bother you the way they used to. You won't get hooked so easily. You'll read the comment, hear the tone, see the bait, and smile to yourself because you've already decided, that's not mine. It doesn't belong in my piece. I'm not going there today. And trust me, people will notice. They'll notice the way you don't flinch, the way you stay rooted when they try to shake you, the way you let go of what's not yours to carry. And some won't like it because your calm will confront their chaos. Your silence will highlight their noise. Your refusal to engage will expose their need for control. But don't let that pull you back in. You've done that before. You know how that story ends. This time, you're choosing peace, not because the world is calm, but because you are. So the next time you feel that pull, the one that says, say something, fire back, prove your point, just pause. Remember, it's an invitation, not a command, and you get to choose whether you RSVP. Some fights aren't worth it. Some arguments are traps. Some conversations are just emotional quicksand. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink. You're not obligated to explain yourself to everyone. You don't have to absorb people's projections. You are not a hostage to someone else's emotional spiral. You are in control of you, your energy, your peace, your presence, your exit. So don't attend every invitation. Choose wisely, choose intentionally. And remember, you don't have to be louder to be stronger. You don't have to be angry to be right. You don't have to show up to every conflict to prove who you are. You already know who you are. And that quiet confidence is what keeps you unbothered, unshaken, and fully powerfully at peace.